like maybe you could be saving more. Sure, you're adding money towards your retirement account. You're saving towards maybe your kids' education or your next vehicle. Maybe even saving for down payment on your first home or that next rental property or your first rental property, right? And you know that you're saving, you're just not sure if you're saving the amount that you really should be saving each month in order to actually hit your goal. If that's the case for you, then stay tuned because I'll go over some different tips to help you figure out exactly how much it might make sense for you to save each month. So, on this journey to try to figure out what makes sense to save every month, step one really is going to be about knowing what your net monthly income is. You want to start with your after tax income. So, that is what actually hits your bank account each month. So add up all consistent income streams that you maybe salary, bonus, any passive income, maybe you have a part-time business or maybe do some consulting on the side. So when you think about it, this is going to be after any taxes or benefits or contributions or anything that will already be taken out of your money. So it's what actually hits your bank account. Know what that monthly income is, that net monthly income, because essentially that is going to be your baseline for how much you can actually target towards being able to save more. So now once you figure out what in step 1 what your net monthly income is, then you could start to think about what your various goals are. And so then you want to set your short-term goals, think maybe from now into 2 years. Your midterm goals, those are going to be the 2 to 5 year mark, and then your more long-term goals, like 5 years or more. So you really want to jot those down and just think about what the goals are. Write them down. You want to put down what the time horizon is, obviously what the goal is, and then the time frame. So if you think maybe a short-term goal might be you're trying to get your emergency fund up, we usually would say 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses saved is enough for an emergency fund. There's some situations where you might need even more than that, but maybe you're just a month shy of what you need in your emergency fund. So that will fall in that short-term bucket for time horizon. Within the next year or so, you might be working towards that goal. Or you might have a slightly longer term goal, like maybe saving towards a down payment on a home, whether that's 10%, 20%, 3.5 to 5%, just depending on what you're going for, or a new car. And that might fall within that 2 to 5 year time frame. Or think more long term, maybe you just want to be financially free, or you think retirement and then running retirement projections will be helpful. But maybe you know that you have a goal of trying to at least put 15% in your retirement account. You know that you want to hit that goal within the next 5 years. So then you would come up with a plan for that as well. So just jot down what are the various goals that you're working towards. So I would suggest you don't want it to be overwhelming. You could start with maybe 2 to 3 goals per category. So meaning within the short term, within the midterm, and within the long term. And then add in an estimated dollar amount so you can know exactly what it is that you're working towards. That'll be important. And then, so once you've done that, you know what your net monthly income is. So you know what's hitting your bank account. You have an idea of the goals that you're working towards, the time frame, and then about how much it might cost you. The next thing to do is to really consider using a framework, if you don't already, as a starting point to really determine how you want to allocate the money that you're earning, that net income that hits the account. So a lot of times people will use like a 50-30-20 mix where 50% are going of their income is going towards their needs, 30% is going towards wants, and then 20% is going towards saving and investments. Other people might use like a 60-20-20. So 60% towards needs, 20% towards wants, and 20% savings and investments. So it's just a starting point. And that's a good baseline. So if you think about it, let's say you're using the 50-30-20, the 50% towards needs is like that will be housing, utilities, groceries, maybe transportation costs. And then the 30% up towards your wants might be like eating out. So maybe like to dine out quite a bit or travel, entertainment. Those are the areas that if we needed to, we could cut back, right? There's a lot more flexibility. Those are not our necessary expenses. Those are our non-essentials. And then savings and investments, 20%. So the goal, if you wanted to aim for a particular percentage or threshold, is to save about 20 to 30% of your net income each month at a minimum. And that'll be split perhaps between like your emergency fund or any investments like your 401k, IRAs, brokers that you might have, and then that short or midterm savings bucket. So it's going to be allocated across those. A lot of people like the idea of having a framework of 50, 30, 20 so that they can at least gauge Am I doing the right thing? Am I hitting those percentages more often than not? And that allows you not to feel so maybe overwhelmed with having to look too in detail at your budget. So if you find that those thresholds work for you, then perfect. And then you can move on to step 4, which essentially is where you want to break down your monthly savings targets by each goal that you listed. So remember, you had said, okay, maybe I want to build my emergency fund, or I want to buy a house, whatever it is. You're trying to turn those dollar-based goals that you came up with into a monthly savings target. And for example, if you would like to, let's say, for instance, you want $30,000 saved for a down payment on a house, and you want to do that within 3 years. So you simple math, right? You take the 30,000 divided by the 36 months, and that's about $854 a month. And if you wanted a goal of like, maybe it's not as expensive, it's a $10,000 goal. Maybe you want to take a really good vacation, maybe you with a family, or maybe just by yourself, and you know you want to do that vacation in 18 months. So you take the $10,000 divided by 18 months, and that's about $556 per month. The idea is that you're trying to get very particular and know exactly how much it is you need to save. So you're taking that bigger dollar amount and you're moving it to something that is bite size that you can chew at each month. And so basically, you would essentially be creating for yourself a table of monthly needs or savings needs, I would say, per month that you need to come up with. So that helps it just feel more normal, basically, to be able to go that route. So you want to also factor in any employer contributions, right? Because that really helps you save for your future as well. So if your employer contributes to your 401k, and oftentimes they really do give you a match. So you'll have to put in a certain threshold that would give you the maximum amount that the employer is willing to contribute on your behalf. So that could be like from even an HSA, those contributions as well. And that reduces how much you might have to contribute. So think if you had an overall goal of contributing 20%, let's say, so your 401k, well, if your employer matches 5, instead of you having to save the full 20 on your own, you could put in 15%. And that's helping you reach your goals much quicker. Don't forget to consider how much your employer is helping you meet your goals. What are they contributing? And so if you want to use maybe a dollar amount, so essentially maybe you have a goal of saving $1,500 a month towards retirement. Well, if they're putting in 500, then you only have to save 1,000. And that might be between your 401k and an IRA or Roth IRA, for example. So there is flexibility there. And through the entire process, you want to make sure you're tracking your progress every month. You can use a spreadsheet. Like some people still love to use Excel. That's perfectly fine. You can use apps. I know Monarch, but whatever app, or I know NerdWallet. Like if you're not sure, NerdWallet, usually you can go on there and just search for the most common budget tracking or monthly savings sheets. And then that can be very helpful. The idea though is that whatever you use, whether it's Excel, whether it's pen and paper, whether it's one of the apps, you just want to be reviewing it often. And I always say it's a good idea to look at it every month, but you want to review it and rebalance based on any income changes that you have, or if you get a bonus or any windfalls that you get, or if your goals shift. It's important because as things change, you might need to adjust up or down, right? Or if you're using the 50-30-20 framework that I mentioned, and let's say you had a reduction in income, or just some of your more fixed essential expenses have become more expensive, then you might reduce the wants budget. So, which is that 30% bucket. You might reduce something in that bucket. Maybe you get rid of some subscriptions, or maybe you go to get coffee less, or maybe you buy yourself a coffee maker or an espresso machine, or whatever it is that would help. Or maybe you aren't leasing. Maybe you look for a car that you'll just pay cash for because the lease is a bit too expensive. But if you're not paying attention to those kinds of things, or if you had a new baby or you adopted or whatever it is that shifted your expenses or made your goal shift, you want to take that into account. And then adjust with your income growth that you get over time. As your income rises, increase your savings, not just your lifestyle. So, yeah, you might be able to afford better things or better vacations or whatever suits you, but you want to also be adjusting and increasing how much you save. And the rule of thumb there is like for every 10% maybe that you get as a raise, that you might also increase your savings rate by at least half. So if you get 10%, maybe you're saying, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and increase how much I save by 5%. And that can be very helpful, right? Or if you got a 5% rate, maybe you increase your savings rate by 2.5%. 30%. So savings is not just a habit, it just is a muscle. You don't even think about it. It's something that you put in place and it's automatic. You're able to build it as you grow. So your income is growing and so is your savings. Great. So, just as a quick recap, if you are at a stage where you're saying to yourself, you know what, I know I want to be able to save more. I'm saving now, but I need to increase how much I'm saving. And I'm not really sure how much. Remember, every person's amount or their ability to save might be a little bit different. So, you want to calculate what your net monthly income is. Remember, that's your after number 1. Step 2, you want to go back and just define and have a clear picture of what you're saving towards and what's the time frame. So remember, like, what fits in the short term, midterm, long-term goal? What is the goal? And how much do you expect that you need to meet a particular goal? And then step 3 is start with 20 to 30% as your goal as far as how much you should be saving. 20 to 30% of your net pay. And then you want to break the goals down by monthly targets. So break them down into monthly targets, knowing, okay, if it's 10,000 over X amount of months, how much do I need to save per month? That's really going to create a very clear picture on what you need to do within your monthly budget. So per paycheck even. So if you get paid twice a month, you'll know what you're doing and it won't just be a pie in the sky type of goal. And remember, give yourself some flexibility because you do get to adjust for any employer contributions towards your savings. That's going to be really important. So, any contributions that your employer makes, you can essentially reduce in those particular areas how much your own contribution needs to be to make. So, remember, we mentioned if you have a goal of 15% towards retirement and they're putting in 5, then that means you can put in 10 and use that other 5% towards another goal, maybe short term or midterm goal that you might have. And always be tracking your progress. That was step 6. Try and make sure that you are remaining on target and that you're adjusting and you're being realistic as your life changes. And then the 7th step, which is very important, right, is as your income grows, don't just allow lifestyle to increase or become better, but also your savings rate. So you want your savings rate to grow as your income grows. And that essentially just combining those steps helps you get a clear game plan to determine what am I doing now? How much am I already saving? What's my actual income that's hitting my account? What goals do I have? How much is it going to take to hit my goals? The time frame. So you'll break it down into monthly. And then you have a framework. I know I should be putting 50 here, 30 there, 30 here. Excuse me, 50, 30, and then 20. So use that framework, come up with your guideline for how much you need to be saving every month, and then automate, and stick to it. And then surely you should be able to knock each one of those goals out or come so close that you are happy with it and it doesn't take much longer. Happy saving.